From time immemorial, the sovereign nations have inhabited, protected, and preserved the land that is so-called Canada. We acknowledge this fact. The land we serve is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Chippewa. Reelworld's offices are in Toronto, which is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you so much, Sophia and Reelworld, for having us. This is going to be a really exciting talk. There's 3 incredible documentary filmmakers with incredible, insightful films. Sort of the run for the day is that I'm going to introduce them, and then we're going to see 1-minute clips from all their films. We're going to have a 25-minute discussion, and then there'll be time at the end for audience questions. So if you'd like to, yeah, perfect. Awesome. So I'll start with Bishka Ahmed. Bishka Ahmed is an Afghan-Canadian director and writer who makes documentary films that focus on women's rights. She is known for her films Unveil, The Khuzestan Video Scandal, The Story of the Burqa, Wanting the Wine, Ariana Resurrected, and In the Rumbling Belly of Motherland. Her most recent documentary, Feature in the Rumbling of Motherland, won the Outstanding Feature Film Award at the 2021 Reelworld Film Festival. Bishka also won the Outstanding Producer Award at the festival, and she is currently at the CFC doing the Writers Lab residency. Thank you. Beside her, we have Nora Kevorkian, a Lebanese Syrian Armenian filmmaker. She made her filmmaking debut with the award-winning film Veils Uncovered, followed by Anjar, and the hybrid drama doc feature 23 Kilometers. Nora's latest film, Bata, won top 10 films at Hot Docs Documentary Film Festival and an Amnesty Award at the Durban International Festival. It is an unparalleled documentary that shows 10 years in the life of a strong, unmarried Syrian woman and her family struggling in a refugee camp in Lebanon. Nora is currently working on her next documentary feature, Taste of Longing, and her debut narrative feature, Syrian Dancer. Awesome. And beside her, we have Min Bay. Min Bay is founder of Cactus Film Cinematics and has been avidly devoted to cinematography and filmmaking since 1990. He has expertise and training in film production, cinematography, and the fine arts, a reflection of his education received in Montreal, France, and Korea. He's been a collaborator on several award-winning independent films showcased and recognized in festivals worldwide. The accomplished filmmaker continues his career as a writer, director, and cinematographer for the feature-length documentary film Reset, set in Seoul, Korea. And Reset is screening at this year's festival on Sunday, October 16th, so please be sure to check it out. Now we're gonna cue the clips.
أنا اسمي ماريا. طول حياتي كنت شغيلة سورية. نحن صار لنا 30 سنة بنجي نشتغل لموسى. بيي أبو جميل وموسى ما بيقدر حدا بيفرقهم.
أنا من سوريا وهو من لبناني مسيح. الرجل أنا سن بس شنو أصل المحبة.
Demonstrators are demanding that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad be removed from power.
The Free Syrian Army say government forces backed by Hezbollah fighters have taken control of the town close to the Lebanese border.
Ադիգա ես եմ մյուսը տրացից բոլորը փաթաթեց ջիները գործանեցան նման.
الواحد ما بيعرف بده يتصرف بده يموت من الهم والقهر.
As the war continues, the number of refugees increases, straining already tight resources in neighboring countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and Iraq.
عندنا مثل بيقول بعد الضيق فرج.
There's almost nothing conventional about the war in Syria.
مطلوب من الجيش السوري وإذا حدا ما قبل يشتغل معهم بيقطشوا له راسه.
According to the United Nations, more than 6 million people are now displaced from their homes.
ما بعرف شو رح يصير فينا. أنا خايفة يصير فينا مثل الفلسطينيين. صار 10 سنين من وقت اللي ما بلشت الحرب.
منتظر هستیم دشت برچی میگه که میگه شهر 92 انتحاری شده خب هم دشت برچی هم اما تا هنوز اطلاع مشخص که باید باشه دقیق اونجا چی در کجایش صورت گرفته اینجا میگن که حوزه دهم اما دقیق معلوم نیست ما منتظر همون هستم یک اطلاع محسق باید بیاریم خب چی مشخص که نیست مثلا در سایت ما نداریم فهمیدم مورا مثلا یک مشخص که باید باشه چقدر نفر کشته شده معلوم نیست یکشی گفت که
Thank you each for your films. Sorry, is it? Yeah, okay, good. So yeah, today's panel, Responsible Storytelling, will be looking at how we sensitively portray stories that are close to our own backgrounds or from our own backgrounds as diasporic Canadian filmmakers. My first question is just asking about the impetus for the story and asking what compelled you to tell this story and how you knew you had to tell it.
Hi. Before I start, I want to say that I'm very excited to be here, especially because Reelworld Festival is like a coming of home for me. Exactly 20 years ago, I made my first film, and it was shown here at Reelworld Festival, and so I'm so happy to come back. I think we're all products. Obviously, all of us are products of our families, our experiences, our heritage, and that relates to how I started this film, Batata. Batata means potato in Arabic. I grew up in Lebanon. My dad is Lebanese, Armenian Christian. My mom is Syrian, and her mother is Syrian Muslim, and we have Armenian heritage. And so growing up in Lebanon with the geopolitics of the area, Lebanese and Syrian people don't like each other till now. There's always conflict between the two people. There's political conflict. There was Lebanese civil war. So as a child coming from these two heritages, I felt there was this tension being part Lebanese, part Syrian. And the Lebanese Civil War was basically about this tension. So I always wanted to make a film about this and explore this topic. And then finally, in 2008, I was back in Lebanon visiting my mom, and her friend Musa, the main character of the film, came to visit her. And I hadn't seen him for years, and he's this very charismatic, amazing man who has so much presence. And he invited me to go to the camp to meet Maria. And when we drove in his famous red Chevrolet truck, which watched the film, you would know what I'm talking about. I saw this beautiful woman confidently walking in a field in a red dress. And I kind of immediately know that this was the character that I've been waiting all these years to tell, this political story of Lebanese and Syrian culture, heritage, all this. It's a political film, but it is really character-driven from the point of view of a Syrian woman who's Muslim and is a farmer, and Lebanese Christian man who's a landowner, and he's a man. So this is how the film started in 2009. And I thought, this is part of my culture, I can explore it, and it's gonna be done in 1.5 years, 2 years, and it would be a great story. And halfway through filming, the Syrian revolution started, and I thought I would see what would happen, and I was expecting maybe it would be a couple of months, 6 months, and then it turned to civil war, and probably we'll come back to this question later. And I kept filming. I filmed for 10 years. And then 2 years of post-production, and so we're now in year 13. So I'll stop talking here.
No, okay. Thank you. Hi, thank you for Reelworld having me here. Yeah, my film started actually 2014. I don't know if you remember. I think the GBC also covered part of world news. The South Korean the ferry sank in the West Sea, and I actually happened to be there one day before this incident. My wife actually, at that time, she was pregnant, and it was kind of early. So, but she's like really anxious to check baby. So I mean, here like you cannot do ultrasound in that early stage. So that's why we actually decided to fly over. And then on the way to next day morning, on the way to go to the clinic, we heard the radio news saying like there's like 456 people on board. The ferry is slowly sank. And then that's just short like breaking news. And then we thought, the government, I mean the Coast Guard will definitely can save, because we knew they have like the Korean Peninsula have like each side of the sea, they have like specialized rescue crew. So we thought they're going to all save them. But in the end of the day, we saw the news like almost like crazy. The boat is completely like flip over, and there's still people there, and then we slowly discover what happened. Like they only rescued the boat crew first, and then they abandoned the rest of people there, even though they have more than 75 minutes time. It's there, but they didn't put any effort to save people. So that day I started gathering just a few footages. I mean, at the time I didn't even think about to make a feature-length film. I just want to gather just footages. That was my just natural instinct. And then I didn't even have a camera. Actually brought a small like APS-C like a digital SLR. That was my camera to start. And then I came back to Canada, and then I saw more and more like fake news, and the media was a part of the they don't really trying to discover, they're trying to really covering up, working with the government. The last the presidential administration, they are all like corrupted. This both incident actually like really changed the Korean society in terms of the trauma, in terms of like the thinking about people, thinking about like so it definitely changed the president as well. Like, you know, that was main part of to change the government. So that the president actually ended up step down because of this. So anyway, I follow it until 2021, but there's still don't know what cause of the both sinking, and also nobody really pursue more. Right now it's kind of a pause in terms of the legal activity, and so yeah. And then during the COVID, yeah, I kind of start editing it, even though I still have to go back to shoot like some coverage shot and other part, but and then I ended up finish editing at the end of 21. So that's my process. Yeah, I'll tell you more about details. Thank you.
Oh, you can keep that. Oh, yeah. So I just want to just say a thank you to a friend who's here who might leave, Anna. She was very kind to me this week. Thank you, Anna. I don't know if I'll see you because you might run off, so I just wanted to say that. So I'll just be quick about it. I started in 2018. I sort of heard that the Taliban talks were going to take place in very fancy hotels in Doha, and it kind of really pissed me off. And I thought about it, and I thought, okay, whose life will be impacted the most? And if this turns out, as I suspect, in the worst way possible? And I thought, the generation that came of age during the rebuilding phase. And so that would be the under 25-year-olds who were promised a lot. And then I thought, it would be women and girls, of course. And then I was in Afghanistan, and I found out that there was a news station with women and girls where the news director was the oldest at 25. And it was called Zan TV, Women's TV. And I thought, that's the place that I want to be for the next 2 years while these talks go on in fancy hotels outside the country, and I want to see what happens, good or bad. This is what's at stake, and the women just let me in. So that's sort of the gist of it.
All of the films show just incredible intimacy with the subjects. You can really tell that your subjects trust you, and of course that there's just like not a lot of degrees of separation between you and your subjects. Can you talk about how you established relationships with them, what the process of sort of gaining access was like, as well as just, yeah, how that relationship was maintained over the years of your filmmaking?
In my case, I already knew Musa, the main character, because he was my mom's friend, and I knew him like an uncle when I was growing up. So that was very helpful for me. And the other main character, Maria, she worked with Musa, and because I was introduced to her through Musa and her entire family, I already had, like, the door was open for me to go in and get to know her. So I spent a lot of time with her explaining, because this specific group of people, the farmers who are the migrant farmers, every year they came from the region of Raqqa in Syria, crossed the border to Lebanon on trucks, came to the land in Lebanon in the Bekaa Valley, which is where I grew up, beautiful fields. They set up tents, temporary migrant tents. They call themselves the not so PC way of saying Mexicans of America. I'm quoting from the film. So they work in the field, live in the tents, they pack their tents, and they go back. They've done this for 30 years. So the story was this. And so I spent a lot of time with her, because most of them don't have very good education or access to the world. And explain to her what a documentary is, what we're doing, what I'm doing, and all these to make sure they understand that there's going to be camera all the time. So once I got that, and so, you know, it just takes time, slowly, and at the point you see in the film that nobody looks at the camera, nobody acknowledges you, you're just part of the furniture, the surroundings, and that's exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, my piece is in the beginning, all the victims' family, they don't trust like media. They don't trust like even filmmakers. Like it was very hard to secure even the interview. So I did a lot of like different interview with just sound recorder. They don't, because they don't want to have a camera around. So it was difficult first 2 years to build like relationship, and then my main character, one of the victim's family who lost a daughter, and he's not really easy person to work with. Actually, when I discussed with other people, other family members, they said, "Oh no, not that person." That's what people recommend. But the reason why I chose him, because every time I went to their like social sort of the activist event, he's always with the camera. So I'm always with the camera. So I didn't even notice he's like victim family, but he became like social activist. Before, his job was like a fisherman because of daughter, and he became. So that actually makes me really interested, and then I kind of really following him, and then he refused. He said, I'm really trying to capture what happened behind the camera. He's doing his own sort of filming, but I guess I just stick with him. That's what really changed his behavior to me. Like he's more cooperative and trying to tell the other story. He even in the middle of process, he even connected a lot of other people to helping this film. Yeah.
So for me, because they were already journalists, the conversation about being on camera and stuff was not an issue. But I'm from Afghanistan, the women are from Afghanistan, and as Afghan girls, we're sort of raised to say yes and be good, even if we don't want to. So that was my challenge, which was, yes, they're saying yes, I can film them all the time, but I know I say that too. I'm not sure about that, just because. So I always had, because we had 2 crews, I always had a PA following them who were Afghan, and we had a sort of a red or a yellow marker, and when something happened or when they said something, because they were 2 female Afghans, women, they would like mark it like so-and-so said this or spoke about this or we filmed this, and they'd put a yellow or a red, like watch it, have a discussion with them at the end of the day. And if it wasn't the end of the day, it'd be the next day. I would be like, you mentioned that there's someone coming over to your house who's a khastagar, like coming for your hand in marriage. I don't know, you might be okay with that now. Will he be okay with that if he becomes your husband? I don't know, this film is not gonna be out for 3 years. A lot can happen. So we had a lot of those kinds of discussions, and that helped a lot. And I think the main thing was for them was they didn't want their social media stuff, which they were very active in daily, and we agreed that we're gonna remove that. That, and then just the practice of, I think we're all documentary filmmakers, somewhat anthropologists and journalists, so, informed consent and things like that, right from the get-go. Yeah.
May I add something? We all go into the story knowing what we have to do, get consent, explain everything. But what I want to bring out is that sometimes, like in the case of Patata, the story changes. It starts as one thing about beautiful fields. It changes to becoming a political. And because it's shot over 10 years, a whole decade, people change, political events change. So consent is something also changes. So you have, as a filmmaker, you have a responsibility to your own safety, their safety, what's going on politically, and also cultural implications. In my case, for example, I was working in a very traditional Muslim community, and and I had to respect the wishes of the husbands who didn't want their women filmed, for example. I had to make sure that if I had filmed a woman without her scarf, that I had to cut that out because it might cause problems. Those are the social implications. Like you said, anthropological things. You have to understand the culture you're working in to show respect, because they've accepted you in and they're opening their world to you. There has to be that trust. But politically, at one of my subjects, things got so scary, because when people are defecting the army, that's a really big thing. So I had to end up covering his face so you don't recognize him in the film. For example, in the beginning he was, yes, I'm okay, I can tell whatever, I'm not afraid, I'm brave. But then things changed. So we ended up doing that. So it's not a written thing. It has to evolve with your story.
Thank you so much. I was also just wondering that too, about how the stakes for the films, all of your films seem to escalate with this sort of mounting sense of precarity for some of the subjects, as well as grief and trauma. I was just wondering how else you might touch on how you navigate care and boundaries, both for yourself and the subjects.
This is a really, really big topic. For me, again, I went in it unprepared, thinking I was making a film about, potato farmers, beautiful scenery, all this, a little bit of politics at the background. And so even the visual side of the film was completely different the first 2.5 years. And then as the trauma started, refugees started pouring in. Maria, the main characters, the woman's mother, uncle, brothers, cousins, they kept coming and coming from Syria, traumatized, kids dying. They were all coming, and these beautiful potato fields were turning into refugee camps. I was there from day one. I didn't experience the war. I had already experienced it years ago as a child. That was a different war. But I was having flashbacks. I was being traumatized watching them come, and I was like a sponge absorbing their stories, their traumas, their wars. And that was something I wasn't prepared. I didn't go in, knowing this is what I was going to face. And that was so hard for me. And it turned out to be, serious mental health issues for me. I went to depression, I went to PTSD. I'm still suffering from all of that. But what becomes is that a connection with you and your subjects, and we're talking about, a refugee camp of 2,000 people, where a small group of them, around 100, 150 people, you're very close to, know everything in and out. How do you cut yourself from these people when you were there from day one, when everything was happy, growing potatoes, and then now it's becoming a horrible refugee crisis? I personally wasn't able to just say, this is not for me, I didn't go into this, and leave. I couldn't do that. I don't know if it was right or wrong, but I ended up not knowing my boundary of how to protect myself first, and my kids and my family, and I ended up giving too much and kind of being part of the whole thing. So I ended up spending 10 years filming, but half of it I missed out on my children's lives here because I was in a refugee camp. So it wasn't very clear for me. I just couldn't separate myself. And that's a very big cost to make a film. I'm very happy that the film is there, but you have to ask yourself, are you ready to do these kind of sacrifices as a filmmaker, helping people, getting involved other than filming the film, doing other things to help them, like fundraising, whatever, other stuff that are really, really demanding. I think right now, there's a lot of talk about this trauma, and to filmmakers, journalists, and the subjects. We're talking about it more because now we're not so embarrassed of mental health issues that, we used to keep secrets. But if you're dealing with a company or a production company, there's a large crew, you usually have better support because you would have maybe enough funds to get a consultant, a counselor, or the company that you work for would have a preliminary meetings before you go to shoot, for example, which are really amazing things. But when you do a film on your own, like a one-woman show in my case, which wasn't planned to be like that, but ended up to be like that because of the situation, I didn't have the support. So some really important things to think about before you embark on a really big, important topic is how protected are you? Are you able to deal with your depression? Are you able to separate yourself if you're from the subject? If you go to an interview, like in my case, I set up in a tent, mud to here, cameras, tripod stuck in the mud. I can't pull it out. As I pull it out, I fall backwards, my camera breaks. Next time I go, I want to have an interview and the children are crying. They're screaming, crying. How can you do an interview in a tent when it's freezing? Children are crying. The mother is like really upset sitting at the corner. You can't conduct an interview like that. It's really heartbreaking. And when you find out that the children are hungry, how are you going to put your filmmaker hat and not be a human being? How can you do that interview? You have to drop everything, get in your car, drive, get food, whatever, some wood, bring to warm up the kids. You know, like, how do you separate yourself? How can you say, oh, my interview is more important? When I make a film here, I make a phone call, we make an appointment, schedule, address, show up with the camera crew, we sit down, do an interview, leave. We don't have to face any of this, right? So I can go on and on, so I'm gonna stop.
To me, like, I think it is, I don't know, not so much during the production, but I think it's during the post, because I was editor too, so that was hard. Like, just psychologically, it was really difficult because you're watching like someone's story. It's not a fun story. Many hours. It was kind of hard, and at the same time, it was during the COVID. Like when the COVID started, actually, my editing started. So it was quite depressing, and my families are in Korea, so I was alone in the basement, editing like many hours. That was most difficult part. Yeah, actually, I have one actually episode during the production. We had interview with 3 mothers who lost children. Actually, that was a trauma center. We like pre-arranged, but the one of the mother refused. Like when the interview started, that was hard because they are all suffering. So I think we changed like at least 3 times to actually get an interview. Also, we were there like earlier participating their activity, so that helps. That helps like to be in front of a camera. So yeah, it was very difficult. Like when I'm sure like you'll see the film on Sunday. Like one of the mothers saying like, you know, when they bring up their daughter from the sea, her hands are all like broken because she tried to like survive. So when she said something like that, one of my crew, like, she's crying when the camera is rolling. So it was very hard. Like, you know, I mean, that's part of production, but it's really heartbreaking. Yeah.
I think for my film, because it changed like halfway through when it became sort of clear that the Taliban were very likely going to return, and like the women's lives were going to be sort of changed immensely. I mean, that's one of those times when you kind of have to, as a filmmaker, like stop and kind of like just turn to the person you're filming, and it's like, okay, forget what I want to say anymore. What do you want to say? Because I don't know, you might not even live in 2 years. So you kind of have to be fearless that way and just trust and let them take the lead fully. It's not about us anymore. For me, the women in front of my camera, they were thinking women, they were intelligent, they had big questions about the world, they were critical of the United States. That's what they wanted to talk about. But I knew that my distributor would hate that because that would make it very difficult to sell. But what do? It's like, it's not my story anymore. So you just have to anchor yourself on that and say, shit, I'm gonna let them speak up because they're not gonna be able to be heard anymore, so fuck it, you know? Say what you wanna say. And that's it, you have no choice. You just have to do that.
Thank you all. Yeah, it seems like it took incredible sort of wherewithal to tell these stories, especially because they took place after such a long time and because you have such close relationships with the subjects. Yeah, I guess I also wanted to ask if there was some sort of tenet or something that helped kind of pull you through to making the film, you know, to finishing it. If there was, yeah, because I mean, we've also talked about how difficult it is, but was there something that kind of grounded you in knowing I have to finish this film?
I had the other problem is that I didn't know when to stop filming because it had been going on so much. It was become part of my life. My life was intermingled with their lives. I didn't know when to stop. And I think, you know, as much as the pandemic was a horrible thing for all of us, for this film, it kind of forced me to have an ending. It wasn't the ending that I'd always been waiting for. I was hoping that the Syrian war would end, all these refugees would pack up and they get on the trucks and go back home, and I could film that. It would be a happy ending, you know. Naively, I was waiting and waiting that to happen. And the pandemic forced me to stop filming. Thankfully, I was in Canada when it hit, and I was able to cancel my flight in March of 2020, and then I started editing the film. But throughout the 10 years, I kind of felt the obligation that here I was capturing history, and I just couldn't leave these people alone and forget about them. I felt that there were so many people talking about the Syrian refugee crisis, the war, but nobody was on the ground showing how they were living, how they were cooking, how they were washing their hair, what were the kids doing, like all that, like very intimate, because I lived with them in the tent. I was, you know, the tents are tiny, so you were just beside them. You could see everything, and I thought it was really great that I could do that. And when people share sadness, trauma, difficulties, they kind of get connected somehow. And I felt responsibility to be, you know, continuing to cover that, to make sure that the world knows that I can capture their stories. And it's almost like people say, oh, you know, if you're making a film, it's like you're getting married to that film. It's like a relationship you have with the film, with the story, with the people, and it's really hard to just cut it and put an ending to it. So for me, the pandemic helped me to do that. And I just spent 2 years editing 450 plus hours of footage. Did I answer your question? I think I felt like I went on a tangent, sorry.
You did, yeah. Your tangents are always welcome. They're not really tangents, they're just really good anecdotes.
There was like, I think, at least 2 feature films made about this boat in Korea. I don't know if they are actually, I think one film is still on Netflix, and the other one is just for domestic screening. Those 2 films are really focused on like what cause, like what basically filmmaker is choosing the sort of one direction. Like, you know, one is about the rescue process. The other film is about the corruption company. You know, so they are actually they are suggesting what cause of this, you know. So I don't know, to me it was like too dangerous to say that because still the government, they are doing formal investigation. They're like trying to influence to them. So that's why I didn't choose. So that's what my character is actually supporting. So that's why but it was hard. Like, I mean, especially the project is 7 years. I was really tired too, and also that during pandemic, it was really difficult to finishing the editing. So that was most challenging part. Yeah.
The girls and the women, I say girls because in Afghanistan we say girls if they're not married. We refer women, zan, we say dukhtar for unmarried. Just to clarify, it's not to devalue their competency or anything like that. It's just a translation. They're my friends, you know? And we became better and better friends. We became like sisters towards the end, so it's just a commitment. I don't know if my fellow filmmakers do what I do. You might probably, like I have a diary and I start a film. I write down clearly the promises I've made to someone, and I check that often. And if I'm ever feeling like I'm gonna stray away from that, I'll have a conversation. But for me, I don't know if the other two filmmakers here have also experienced this. It's like once the film is ending, but then it's not. It has a lifeline, and the distribution is really essential. So initially, the distribution was going to be with a different partner. Then what happened, it was like, that's not the right partner anymore. It has to be a different partner for what these women want to say and how their story is unfolding. So, but thankfully, Women Make Movies is the perfect partner, and they came on. So that also changes, you know, the life sort of trajectory plan you had for it. You're suddenly like, oh yeah, but that wouldn't be the right future partner because their lives are not like that anymore. I have to change that. So checking in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do keep some type of a diary, like what you said, so just to know what's going on and promises or plans. And in terms of when the film is finished and it's shown at a festival, it doesn't mean that that's it. You know, this relationship is for life. There's that connection with the subjects in my case and with my other films as well, continues for life. So I am in touch with Maria, her entire family, and we're on WhatsApp. And I talk to her once a week. And so this is an ongoing thing. You know, it's just really hard to get them out of your life. It's a very strong relationship. So it continues and probably will forever. And my husband is terrified that I might pick up the camera and go back to continue.
Thank you. I wanted to continue with that thread. They're all such powerful films, and just wanted to, can you speak more to how you consider the impact of the film and how you go about reaching audiences for the film?
I'll just go this way. So I'm with, you know, Women Make Movies is the perfect partner for my film. They're in New York. They do a lot of screenings around. Also, Cinema Politica has been a great supporter of the film. So I'm partnered with people who want to get the film to festivals, but also community, to universities. So that's one of the ways. It's just to make sure that you spend time and think about who you partner up with once the film is complete, and what your goals are, right? So my goals are that people remember Shakufa and her team and women in Afghanistan like that, and not see women and girls in Afghanistan as the women just under the blue burqa and just accept that that's what it is. So I have to make sure that these women's films are screened in universities and high schools, in community centers, that it's not just for the privileged people who can buy film festival passes or has like cables, you know, things like that, so.
I'm that side, the distribution side, I'm really like a newbie. So because my film is showing here first time Ontario, so also the film just start releasing to festival. I think it's in March. So we are still like trying to get in more festival, and also, yeah, we have some conversation about distribution right now. So hopefully we can show more, trying to find more audience. So that's main goal. Also same time, like we hopefully, it's not I mean it's universal I guess feeling that people who lost children's, right, with this kind of incident. Hopefully this film really heals their pain and their trauma.
For me, as a filmmaker with very subjects that are not so commercial, all my films are war, genocide, all these things. So I've always found distribution in terms of educational distributions, Canopy, Toronto Public Library, all these things, which are, it kind of confirms that, starving artist type of distributions. With Batata, because of the length of the film, how do you squeeze in 10 years of someone's life into short time? So it ended up to be 2 hours and 7 minutes long. And somehow, I can say local, Canadian, every type of distribution, from broadcasters to everyone, has found that really challenging or subject matter uninteresting. I'm not sure. So we have, even though the film has had so much success internationally, competition here, competition there, forest documentary, this kind of series to be in top 10 in hot dogs is a really big success for the film. But with all that, Amnesty Human Rights Award, we haven't had distribution yet. So I feel really sad that I made this great film and there's so many people around the world. I think the film has been in 20 different festivals around the world and still going. I get those amazing emails from people, great stuff people write to me. I have hundreds of pages of it. But when they ask me, where can we see the film? I don't know yet.
So we have time for audience questions. Feel free to raise your hand, and Sophia will come to you with the microphone. We have a question up front. I can also just...
Hi, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And I just kind of wanted to build on top of what you guys are saying and maybe ask about showing the films to the subjects that are in them and that sort of relationship, and how that works, because you probably want to share all this work you've been doing with the people that the relationship is the closest with, but then that can be really hard since a lot of it is very traumatizing and heavy. So I just wondered about that.
So I mean, thanks to Vimeo, at least for me, I was able to share the cuts, and the women could watch it, right? So that, I mean, in terms of distance, for this film, I didn't have a problem doing that. If I was making a different film, maybe I would. I didn't have a problem at all. Like I said, because they were my friends and we had regular conversations about what was going to be in the film and what was not. It wasn't like a painful process. And like I said, at halfway through the film, when their lives really got, like, it was going to be hell for them, I knew that. I just kind of decided I was just going to listen to them. That's it. If they don't like a scene, I'm just going to remove it. I mean, it didn't matter to me anyway. I was walking away from my distributor anyway. So, like, hell, who cares? Like, the Taliban were coming back. I mean, like, who cares? Let the women just be heard. So I didn't really care.
In my case, I haven't been able to share a cut with the refugee camp, and the plan is that sometime soon I'd be able to go back to Lebanon and have a huge screening in the refugee camp. This camp and now is probably over 2,000 people. But that doesn't happen yet, and I don't know if you guys are aware of what's happening in Lebanon right now. Lebanon is in complete destruction after the port exploded in 2020, the devaluation of the Lebanese currency, the bankruptcy of the banks, and the corrupt government. Like Lebanon is really horrible right now. Even if you have millions of dollars in the bank, you cannot take money out because the politicians have stolen all the money. It's really horrible. So even for me to send a Vimeo link to Maria, who can hardly buy bread as a refugee, or even a Lebanese teacher who can hardly pay food, it's impossible for them. They don't even have the bandwidth. Nobody has money. There's ultra rich people and everybody else, including my sister, my family, who used to be middle class. Everybody's lost everything. Just to give you an idea, my sister's salary was equivalent to $800 a month. Now it's down to $50 a month. And everything else is like, gives you an imagine that happening to us. So things are really unsafe. There's no medical help. If you have infection and you go to the doctor, they can only give you 3 pills. There's not enough antibiotics to go around. So that's part of the reasons why I haven't been able to go back, because I have some medical conditions. And so I'm waiting for a chance to go and share this with the refugee camp and show them the film. It's going to be difficult, like you said, traumatic for them, because some of the people are not there anymore, right? But I'm really looking forward to it. They've seen the trailer. They know what's going on, but not the whole film.
Yeah, yeah. My film, we had a private screening in Korea last year. Well, I think the reactions are like sort of divided. One half like they're like really cheering that I can finish film, but the other half of the family, they want to see more stronger like story. They want to see more, even more stronger, like, you know, part of the story they want to add. But so basically they want to stay with the camera like longer, not to finish film. They want to keep continue production. So that was difficult, yeah.
I just want to say one thing that's always been I think it's important, is that when we think about someone going through war and their trauma, I think we have to give agency to the person we filmed and ask them before deciding what we want to remove for their protection or not. They need to have a say. They need to feel empowered about the process. So we can't be like, oh, I'm not going to share the film with you because you might be traumatized. We should ask them, this is what the film is about. These are the scenes that's going to be. Do you still want to see it? Do you still have something to say? Because otherwise, we're just momming, dadding adults, and that's not right. Like, I disagree with that. I think people need to be empowered and be given an opportunity at all, through all the phases. And we shouldn't sort of, not mommy police them, you know?
I have a question back here.
Hey, good afternoon. This is to your point about the distribution, and also yourself about getting into schools and colleges and so on with the film, and how seems like a lot of that legwork is on you, right? So my question is, like, in terms of distribution, there's also DIY, do-it-yourself type streaming platforms that they can use, like Vimeo, or that you can create a website. Like, all films have a website. If you put it on the top right corner, stream this film now for $3 for the next 24 hours, whatever it is that not respectable, or is that not an option, or is that not how it works? And if you can also comment on how your process of getting into schools is, like, what does that look like? Thank you.
Which one of us is the question? Open, okay. I do have, for example, some of my films on Vimeo, for example. You know, you can put it up there, or some other platforms, and charge $2 for rental, whatever. You know, it's accessible. It is do-it-yourself platforms. And then there are distributors who specifically deal with educational distributions, you know, like Canopy is one of them, and some other ones. But do-it-yourself is very difficult. I mean, being a filmmaker, making these types of films, you're already working for free, doing everything without pay, plus putting your own money into it. And then when it starts the festival, you're putting all your work, promoting your film. it's like it just doesn't stop. You know, at one point you have to stop and just get a job that pays the bills, right? It's really hard to do everything on your own. So those are some of the options. Do it yourself, but it's really hard to do personally for me.
Yeah, I think Vimeo or even Amazon. I mean, there's many media outlets available. Yeah, so it's like a marketing side. You have to do it by yourself. That's really hard. Yeah, that's why we're looking for like a more like traditional direct distributor. Yeah.
You can absolutely do it yourself. I've never done it, so I don't know. But there are specific distributors that target educational. There are distributors with a focus on community engagement. There are distributors that do all of it. There are distributors that just focus on broadcasters or streaming platforms. And you know, if your film is a fit for them, they will take it and they will do the legwork. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then you get paid for it like end of the year or whenever you start your contract, you'll get like a check based on your percentage. You don't have to work. You don't have to. I don't do anything because they know their market better, so they'll know which universities, which departments in universities will like this film, is a fit for their film. This film, and there's educational like markets. You know, like there's actual markets that people go to and they attend, and people bring their catalogs. So they do all the legwork. Yeah, and then you just kind of hand over all the deliverables of the film and all the like the electronic press kit material for them, and then they put it into their catalog, and then they take it and they send it to their contacts or take it to their markets, and that's how they make their sales.
Yeah, thank you. We actually have time for one more question.
Hello.
We'll start with this gentleman here, and then.
Hi. First of all, thank you for your courage and your bravery. It's been an absolute honor to hear you speak, and also it'll be a pleasure to, of course, watch your work. I just wanted to ask, as artists, like, who have been your inspiration as you've developed your careers and as you've developed this work? Is there anything that comes to mind in your past that has inspired you? Whether it be documentaries or other type of work that you've watched or witnessed, or any sort of artists that have really inspired you to continue on your journey.
Well, I think if you know, as a documentary producer, right, for this project, I didn't really start with a certain inspiration. But I think, I don't know. Every time I have a new project, it just throughout the process, I inspired from my subject, or even just a newspaper photograph. I actually really inspired to shifting to maybe, you know, little change during the editing process. So it depends on which project. Like, you know, when I was working as a cinematographer, I definitely influenced by like director, right? So because when I translate their script to visual language, I always try to inspired by like many different elements of storyline. So it really depends on project. Yeah.
I know time is short. I'll just give you three names: Agnesia Holland, Albert Maisels, and Errol Morris.
I'm inspired by lots of different people. I'm inspired by all of you. Actually, for me, a lot of my work is inspired by a writer by the name of Sarah Ahmed. She's in London. She's a queer Pakistani academic and the writer of A Feminist Killjoy. And that's who I love, and that's who inspires me, is feminist killjoys. Bold women who like to just take down the patriarchy. That's me.
Okay, there'll be time at the end to just come up to the filmmakers and ask them questions, but that is the end of this panel. Thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We didn't say thank you to Elizabeth, so thank you.
Thank you.